Alright, so to finish this, the rest, so we subtracted this by this. Now, we have to do 14 minus negative 9. I guess. And then negative 8 minus 7. And the end result, once you find it, would be the answer, right? So negative 6 minus 5 is negative 11. Negative 6 minus negative 5. This will cancel and be a plus. So that's negative 6 plus 5, which is just negative 1. And again, the negatives will cancel. So it'll be 14 plus 9. That's about 23. Now, negative 8 minus 7, that'll be negative 15. Alright, good. So, now this part will be a little tricky because this is multiplying matrices. So, I3, they want you to do C squared, which is the same as doing C times the matrix C. So you're just multiplying by the same matrix. So C is negative 3, negative 3, 7, negative 4. Good. Now we're going to multiply that by. So C squared would be, you're just multiplying by it again. Alright, so how do you multiply a matrix? Right? So first, when we multiply a matrix, we have to check if we can multiply them by the dimensions. So this is a 2 by 2, and this is the same thing. Right? This will be a 2 by 2. So, like I said last time, you check the inner parts. If the numbers are equal, then you're good to multiply them. Now the end result would be this. That number and that number. So that means you'll have a 2 by 2 as your matrix in the end. In the end, that's what you'll get. 2 by 2. So now let's see how do we multiply them, right? So C squared would be, we know that we're going to have a 2 by 2 matrix. So this is what we do. You can think of it as, start off with each row, right? So negative 3 and negative 3 is your one row. And this is the second row. So that means we're going to do this 1, 2 times, right? I guess I'm going to do it 2 times. And this is our columns. So we're doing it row by columns somehow, kinda. So, when we multiply, in this case, think of this as your first part, and that's your second part. And in the columns, think of this as your first part, and that is your second part. So what we're going to do is, we're going to multiply these two, right? And we're going to add that to these two being multiplied. So these two are going to be multiplied, and these two are going to be multiplied together, and we're going to add that, right? So, and that will give us our position for this position, right, for the next matrix. So this is what I mean. We're gonna take negative 3 and multiply by the first part of the column, negative 3. So that's, I'll just write in parentheses, negative 3 times negative 3. And we're going to add that to negative 3 times 7. right? And this entire thing right here would be the first. This will give you a number. This will be the first part of our 2 by 2 matrix. This will be the left hand corner on the top. Now to get this part, we're gonna. I'll just have to stretch this out more. Right, I guess. So just forget about this right here. So what we did, right? We did this times this plus this times this. So we're gonna do that for this part to get the number that should go in here, right? The number that should go in here. Right, and then we're going to do it again to get a number that goes in here. And then a number that should go in here. So what we want is 4 numbers in total. Right? So for this one, we're going to do this, -3 times -3. And we're going to add that number to -3 times -4. So I'll just write that out. That'll be -3 times, we said, -3. And we're going to add that to -3 times -4. So you see the first parts you multiply, and the second parts you multiply. So each part corresponds with itself. So we said -3 times -4. Right? So this will give us a number, and that'll go in that position. So next, how do we? So that was our first row. We did that with our first row. So now imagine you're doing that same thing with the second row. So this will be our first part, and this will be our second part. This will be our first part, second, our first, second. So we're gonna do this times this plus this times this. And the same thing goes for this one. This times this plus this times this. So we're always doing it. The first parts and second parts correspond. So for this position, we're going to go to our 7. 7 times -3 . And we're going to add that to -4 times 7. Next, to get our final position, we're going to do that whole thing for this column. So we're going to do 7 times -3. And we're going to add that to -4. Wait. We had 7 times -3, and we're going to add that to -4 times -4. And these are each give us numbers for our C-squared matrix. So just to write this more simpler, I had -3 times -3 plus -3 times 7, so that would be 9. -3 times 7 is -27, so you're subtracting that with 27. We had -3 times -3, so we have +9 again, and then -3 times 4, that's 12, -12. So we're going to subtract that with 12, so that'll give us that number here. 7 times -3 is -21. -4 times 7 is -28, so we subtract that by 20. So it looks like you're adding by negative 28. 7 times negative 21 times 3 is negative 21. And we're going to add that to 16 because negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. That'll give us a final number. And you can figure the answer out yourself.